Even though it feels like it's not worth it sometimes, it is worth it. There's days I have to work that I don't want to, but I know 10 years from now, I will never regret the time I'm spending right now because time will solve all issues. Maybe not worth it today, but it's going to be worth it in the future. So,
What's up, everybody? Mason McDonald and Dan Haberkost here with another episode of the Big Picture Blueprint, where today we're interviewing a pretty young guest that has already built a substantial real estate portfolio in, small town. I don't know if that's the Midwest or the South or what you want to call it, but before we get into that, Dan, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. It was fun having or doing this interview today. Definitely very motivational and a lot of good insight. But business has been pretty good lately. We're selling a lot more than we were early in the year, so all is well. But anyways, back to today's episode, we have Dylan Osmon on the show, and he owns and founded Osmon Properties, and that is a real estate investment firm in Mountain Home, Arkansas. And he has built his portfolio up to 180 units through a mixture of value add rehabs and new construction. He got duplexes, apartments, single family, and mobile home parks within the portfolio. And it's really crazy everything that Dylan is managing at once and how much he's built in. I think it's 5 or 6 years now he's been in business. So we talk a bit about what does operating this actually look like, how he's getting good deals, how he's still effectively building at a cost cheap enough that he gets the bank to finance it 100%. And we talk a bit about what goes wrong, starting off the episode with the fire that he's working on putting out today, which I enjoyed because it just gives a realistic insight into what running a business is like. So without further ado, let's bring Dylan in and get to it. Dylan, welcome to the show.
what's up, guys? Good to be here.
Good to have you, man. I was excited to have you on after meeting you a couple weeks ago on the podcast we did together, and I thought we would just jump right into it. You
Yeah.
mentioned before we started recording that you had a bit of a fire today, so tell us what's
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah. I told you I'm going to try to not to discourage people from real estate investing, but today was kind of a real kick in the nuts. So probably 2 weeks ago, I had two people working in my office. I manage about 180 units, and I had to let one of the two people go 2 weeks ago, and so we've had one for the last 2 weeks. We've been short staffed already. I've been interviewing, been looking for that next person, and then I found out something kind of fishy happened over the weekend. This person didn't come in yesterday, but he told me about it at least. And then today I showed up and he wasn't here at all with no message, no text message, no phone call. So finally I got a hold of him at 11:15, something like that, and he told me he had moved. So he is out of here. So really no notice. So it is back to a one-man show on a business that should not be a one-man show. So,
Oof, man. Okay, and so just to give our audience a little more background on what all is managed now by a one-man show, you mentioned the portfolio. What is encompassed in those 180 units, and do you have any other active projects going in conjunction with all of that management?
at this present day, we really own like 205, 210, 215 units, something like that. Of that, we manage 180. Of that 180, probably 20 to 30 of them are pretty heavily being stabilized right now. So maybe not actively in the rent roll, but the other 150, they are. They're rented or being ready for rent. And that's actually not that many for one person, but when it's like in the stabilization phase, it kind of is. And then not to mention, I'm still managing the construction and managing the financing and whatnot. So yeah, and I do have two full-time VAs, so I'm not just totally by myself. The VAs are great, but there's still some stuff that you have to do in person that a VA won't be able to.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a lot. I mean, just managing a number of rehabs is a job in and of itself, let alone the needs of 150 some active rental units.
Yeah.
And many of the questions that come to mind now are probably more appropriate in a month or two once you've gotten through this. But I just wanted to give our audience a real glimpse into what we deal with every day. And most of our listeners are in the business in one capacity or another, so they get it. But that's what happens. A lot of times you open your phone or your email, you get kicked in the face first thing in the morning with something going
Yeah.
wrong. I've
Yeah,
had to.
so if we're telling somebody all that and they don't really understand rentals, maybe just like life quality right now to, to give a better glimpse. I'm probably working like 60 hours a week right now, maybe more. I don't really track my time, so I don't know for sure, right? But it feels kind of like waking up and starting, and maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours before I go to sleep, I'm still working. That's kind of what it feels like. So it's pretty long days right now. But if it was easy, everybody would do it. So we just have to push through it.
Yeah, 100%. And as you scale, you're going to have more ability to hire more good people. Now, people management is something Mason and I talk a lot about because that tends to be one of the biggest bottlenecks, really, for most small businesses. A lot of people just are never get good at hiring, and so they just choose not to grow because they hire someone. Oh, it didn't work, and then they give up and just stay where they are. So, tell us what do you think the keys are to hiring good people? What do you think went wrong with the Yeah.
You're asking the guy that has nobody. I don't know.
But the irony is you're in the position where correct me if I'm wrong, you're probably sitting there thinking, I saw this over the course of the last few months or years, and I probably knew this person wasn't gonna work out and I ignored it. Or maybe I'm
100%. Yeah, no, 1,000%. I can tell you one thing for sure. If core values don't match, that person won't be there very long. Like, no doubt. Okay, so even this person that just left yesterday, I've been telling my wife for the last 2 or 3 weeks, I'm like, "Hey, I kinda know this guy's not really a great fit core value wise, but as far as his ability at performing at the job, he was kicking ass. Like, he was doing really well, right? He's a leasing agent doing extremely well, but I could kinda see long term, even his past employer, I could kinda tell, like, probably not the ideal core value group to hire, but we changed it anyway. But literally every time I've had that little gut feeling of, this person's probably not the right fit long term, it seems like within the next 2 weeks they're gone naturally or from me firing them. So core values are everything in hiring. Absolutely everything. I'll take core values over experience, um over a lot of things. But core values are everything.
That's so frustrating. And Dan and I have talked about it for like 5 years now of like, if we ran each other's businesses, it would go so much better sometimes because, you're inundated with the day to day. You finally have someone that on paper will perform. And you're like, you make so many snap decisions in real estate to pick up properties that, are amount to be great deals and doesn't always translate in hiring where you saw the foregone conclusion, but it still happens. But we can both resonate with that frustration. We've both been through it multiple times. Hiring the wrong people, hire slow, fire quick is the best way to do it, of course. But let's talk about that portfolio because that is a good amount of units. How is it broken down? Single family, duplex, small multifamily, larger multifamily, or do you have a general unit breakdown of everything?
I not specifically. It is a good mix. So if you include the new build single families, we're probably sitting somewhere between 18 to 25 single family homes, somewhere in there. I've got about if you include the new build duplexes, we've probably got 10 duplexes or so, and then the rest of it's going to be mobile home parks, apartments, um, kind of that mix. So
Got it. And, before we hopped on, scaling was one of the words you mentioned, being really willing and able to talk about, especially having gone into the, triple digit number of units over the past handful of years of those asset classes, because it's really hard to scale single family and duplex, if you're looking at just a unit count perspective of everything you've done, what do you want to continue to focus on to get to, call it the 1,000 unit or
yeah,
$100 million AUM?
this is something me and my mentor talk about. So if I wanted to do it over 30 years, I could do nothing. I could do exclusively new construction. So if you were to ask me, like, what's my favorite thing to do right now? It's new construction. I'm loving it. Like, it's easy. Tenants love it. Maintenance is low. It's sexy. It's systemized, blah, blah, blah. Okay. But if I exclusively did new construction, it would take significantly longer to accumulate that many millions in real estate, right? Because building new construction is not as fast of a process as value adding something, right? If I like, I've bought deals that don't need that much construction. They just need a better management team. That's the value add part of it. You just got to manage it better. So turning over an apartment complex with management is a 6 to 12 month project. And I could do that on a 30, 40, 50, 60 unit, right? To go build that many units, from where I'm sitting at today, that would take probably 2, 3 years. That's a lot of units, right? Not to say I couldn't build more in a year, but that's just I'm not to that level yet on new construction. And so for me, like I'm in a smaller market. I'm a big believer in doing one thing and one thing only, but for me, I've gotta expand that a little more than what I really want to, and so I've gotta combine new construction along with value adds within an hour circle because 'cause I'm in a small market, right? So I just don't have thousands and thousands and thousands of apartment inventory to go buy and, push value on. So I've gotta expand my buy box a little more than what I'd like to, if that makes sense.
Sure. So this is somewhat of a leading question, but I'll ask it anyways because I'm curious if you have arrived at the same conclusion. You mentioned some of the multifamily, you mentioned single family, and you mentioned mobile home parks. Why not, or hold on, let me rephrase. Multifamily, I know you mentioned you're in a small market, but you still, unless your goals are bigger than I realize, stick with just multifamily. Why are you still doing the smaller unit uh, uh, builds and or rehabs and holds as well?
I think the answer to that is it's easier to build a single family house than it is apartment complexes. So I had never built anything until November of last year. That's when I started my first place. And so, when you talk about building, a lot of it has to do with red tape and what you can and can't do, right? And so building a single family on a lot that's already zoned for single family is way easier than taking a piece of land that has no infrastructure. You have to rezone, and then with multifamily, you start getting into does a law even allow it? So like if it's in Arkansas, if you're in five or more units, that's commercial construction. And so you have to use commercial rated subs. You have to get I think the apartments are required to be sprinkled. There's a lot more firewall requirements. There's all these extra elements. So for me to learn building, I thought single family duplexes easy breezy. Like that's the way to start. I already had those plans. That's another part of it. Like if I had a 20 unit apartment complex plan in my hand, I may do it. But I think, yeah, I think that was my reasoning for starting on the smaller stuff. But also the I'm building a single family house. There is no more desirable of a type of unit than a single family house from a tenant space, right? Tenants do not like shared walls. They don't like walking up a flight of stairs. If you can get them 4 private walls in their own space, you're gonna have the most desire for that unit, okay? So, if I can go build single families and build them close to each other in, like, an apartment style setting, I can kinda get some of the best of both worlds. I'm getting the amount of units on, piece of land that I can. I'm getting the most units I can, and I'm also getting that tenant the most desirable product they want, which is that single family house.
Yeah, that's what I was alluding towards because
Yeah.
when I was new and listening to podcasts, most podcasts talked about multifamily, large multifamily as the end all be all. And now that I've done this for, coming up on 9 years here, I love the nice single family and or large duplex where each side is essentially its own house. The tenant quality is great. The turnover is lower. I greatly prefer those assets myself as opposed to, I have friends in Class C multifamily, and you can do very, very well. It's just much more of a headache.
Yeah. So when I got into trailer parks, I thought I would be really struggling with the quality of tenant, but I'll tell you, we put some really nice mobile homes out there, so we fixed them
Mhm.
up nice, but they're still a mobile home. But I would say those tenants actually stay longer and better than my apartments do because again, it's 4 private walls. You're not sharing walls. People feel like it's their own house.
Yeah.
So mobile homes actually do pretty good as far as the tenant base. I haven't minded it.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't have any experience other than just flipping land with old mobiles on it. Um, how was that? Just you stumbled into a good deal, or did you intentionally get into mobile home parks?
I don't remember the answer. I'm trying to remember. I bought my very first mobile home park in, I want to say 22, and that was down in Mississippi. And bought it with a partner. We didn't own the homes on it though, so that was my first introduction. And then up here where I live now in Mountain Home, there was an 18 unit that came up that it was a dog, man. It needed a lot of work. That was a heavy, heavy, heavy project, but we got it done, and it's been a good I don't know that I'm cash flowing that much right now on it today because I financed out some of the construction for the mobile homes on, like, 5-year debt. But once that debt pays off even before that debt pays off, because 'cause we've pushed rents a lot, but once that debt pays off on those mobile homes, that thing will be a cash cow. The mobile homes are not bad. So I own those homes.
Got it. And do you prefer it that way, or do you like? Because I've heard a lot of mobile home park investors prefer just to own the dirt.
100%. Yeah. Vast majority of mobile home park owners like just owning the dirt. And mobile home investing has become like the hot topic in the last 5 years. I say that as somebody who's only invested for 5 years, but you see a lot of syndications now that are focused on mobile home parks. I think if it's local to you and you have the people in place, like maintenance techs, remodel techs, owning the home adds. I just look at the rent roll difference. I can charge $300 for a lot, or if I have the home on there, I can charge $900 for rent. So I get just a dramatic bump of rent roll. And if it doesn't bother me to fix up the mobile home, then great. If you've got really crappy homes, then it's probably not that fun. But if you've got nice new remodeled stuff, I haven't found it to be any different than apartments or single family. The biggest difference is how they appraise. So that's the heart. That's the biggest dagger in the heart with mobile homes is they don't appraise very well. You can put all the money into it that you want, but it's still a 30, 40, $50,000 mobile home. Whereas I could probably do that same amount of work building a house and it appraises out for 3 times that, 4 times that.
Got it. Got it. So you're doing a lot of new construction. I imagine it's stick-built homes. Are you doing manufactured housing for any of the new builds that you're doing?
No, no, it's all been stick built.
Got it. And, I've heard you in other podcasts, and Dan and I agree. We've done tons of podcasts on it, and it's almost, the bread and butter of our business is the direct-to-seller marketing piece. So you're in a smaller market, you're doing new construction, you're doing, single family, small multifamily, and, mid-sized multifamily, acquisitions as well. What do you feel like is the key to your success in the direct-to-seller marketing game?
So it depends on the seller. If we're talking about single family residential, it's going to be timing. Timing will beat everything because we're just looking for motivation. On your commercial seller, that person that's selling you the mobile home park, the apartment complex, I have found that to be far, far, far more relationship built. You're probably not going to find motivation there from like a deferred maintenance standpoint. You'll find deferred maintenance, but you're not going to find like sellers that are in a cash crunch as often, right? It's more like when is the timing right for them? They're either transitioning into a new asset, they're retiring, they're ready to sell out, they're ready to get out of the rental game. So it's very much relationship built. It's a lot longer. Like I would say my average first contact to close timeline is way longer on commercial sellers than it would be on your single family mom and pop seller.
It's hard to find a tired landlord that, has 100% equity in a property that they've owned for 30 years that's cash flowing and they don't really care about the maintenance or anything, especially if, the homes are owned by the people living in them. What about on the land piece? Are you doing direct seller there too?
For the development, that's come. So, like I said, I've done very easy deals so far, like stuff that's already got the infrastructure there. I haven't done any like wild development stuff. I've been very simple. It's already zoned right. The infrastructure's at the road. I just connect up to it and build. The next level of development is like buying a raw piece of land and putting in sidewalks and roads and putting in the water line, the sewer lines. I haven't really done that. But to answer your question, out of the 3 or 4 land deals I've bought, half of them have been on MLS, right? There's actually a lot of lots out there that your typical homeowner wouldn't want to build on because it's in a weird spot. But for a rental sake, I don't care, right? So I bought a lot a year ago for 15 grand, built a house on it, cashed it out, moved on. I bought the 14 parcel or the 14 lot deal that we're building duplexes. So we're building 14 duplexes right now. That was bought off the MLS. The 6 house deal that I've got, that was just a Facebook post and somebody reached out. I made a Facebook post. So it's been like half and half direct seller, half and half MLS, I would say.
Got it. Yeah, that's kind of where we're at in the business on the development side as well. All right, you're wearing a tremendous amount of hats. You're doing, acquisitions. It sounds like you're managing almost all of these properties yourself. You said you have 2 VAs. Are there no operations set and staff, no sales staff? It's just you?
It's just me right now. Yeah, it's really not something to be proud of. I mean, my VAs are very good. One of them's still training pretty heavily. The other one's been with me for 6 or 7 months. She's very good, but it doesn't matter. Like VAs only get you so far. Tenant phone. Believe it or not, the tenant always wants to talk to the owner. They never want to talk to the VA. It's the craziest thing. And so there's just a lot of phone calls to field. We're also still we have a lot of vacancies right now to fill up. that's the hardest part. You have to keep your eye on the ball on leasing. You have to drive leasing all day long. And I just lost my leasing agent, so that's going to be the first person I try to get back is somebody pushing leases and getting units filled because
Oh,
that's what I need more than anything.
yeah, yeah, and I imagine just psychologically, it's hard to continue with lots of new construction whenever you have all these, or not all these, but whenever you have vacancies and all this other stuff. So, how are you balancing growth with currently, putting all this
Stabilizing, yeah. I don't think I've ever been like I don't think I've had one moment in the last 5 years since I've started where I've been like, I shouldn't buy anymore for a little while. I should just stabilize what I've got. But I'm pretty heavily right there right now. It's not going to last long. Like real estate investors have to buy deals. Otherwise, we get bored. We feel like we're not moving. At least I do. Right. So I bet you by October, I'm going to be pretty itchy to go buy that next deal. But by October, I'm going to have, my rent roll right now a month is like 105. I bet you by October, we'll have that at 125, 130 with another 15 to go, but that's okay. Like, I know that'll come in time, but I'm going to be itchy to find another deal in the fall. But for the next month, 2, 3 months, the most important thing to me is finishing construction and then staffing the right positions.
Yeah. I I get that. The funnest part is always finding the deal and taking it
Oh, yeah.
down, right?
Oh, yeah.
Managing it is not as fun, although very essential. Now, something you kept mentioning the other day when we met on that other podcast was cash preservation. Protecting your cash. Talk to us about how you're leveraging these products. Let's just use that 14 duplex build. How is that
Mhm.
structured to minimize the amount of cash you leave in it and fund it through the bank or investors?
Yeah. So on that deal specifically, I've got a partner, but it wouldn't really make a difference because neither the partner or I am bringing any money to the table. So my cost per build is pretty good. I'm able to build at probably, let me do the math in my head, probably about 60, 65, maybe 70% of what they're appraising out at. So the bank's been financing us 100% of hard costs. Plus that covers the land too. So we're getting into these deals, and I'm making very conservative rehab budgets. That's the other thing I was going to say. So I'm very conservative on my budget. I'm hitting those well. And so the banks are financing us 100%. So we really don't have to come out of pocket any money on those. And in
I
fact,
heard.
like on the 14 parcel deal, like once we finish all of those, we're probably going to be looking at agency debt where we can potentially do a big cash out and get some cash out of it.
Oh, yeah, that would be phenomenal. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more. Are they funding you based on appraised value? Is that how you're able to do it without any cash out of pocket?
Yes, they're taking the appraised value.
Oh, that's excellent. Okay.
I
Is that
think I had to build some history with them, right? So
Yeah.
if you're out there and you just go to a bank and you say, I want 100% financing of my hard cost to build this product, they're probably not going to do it.
Yeah.
So I think the first loan they did with me, they were very skeptical that I could build it
Mhm.
at that price. But I've got very, very basic building plans. When I started in November, I was all over my cost. I mean, pricing out really hard with subs, really, 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 really looking for that best price and best value. And they're super simple building plans. So building's not as expensive as people think. If you keep your plans simple, keep it rental grade, these are concrete floors, 9-foot ceilings, everything's one color. Like I keep it very simple, right? They're not luxurious. And so banks were very skeptical of that in the beginning. I had to do like the first two duplexes I built, they wanted to see that I could hit the numbers I thought I could. And I did. So I think after that, they were much more willing to say, okay, let's keep doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then once you see what building actually costs, you realize how much the average person is getting hosed when they have any sort of rehabs done at their house, or let alone, just buy a brand new home.
Well, in my market, like nobody's developed. There's maybe one or two guys that are developing this amount of construction every year. Okay.
Hmm.
So your homeowner who goes and builds a custom house, they get one quote from a plumber that they'll only ever use for the next 20 years, right? When I'm going to get that quote, I'm saying, hey, I'm going to build 20 of these over the next 2 years. Now I want your pricing, right? So this is something my mentors taught me is like, when you need to get your price down, you need to flash your volume, right? You need to show your volume. That's what they care about. And so my sub pricing, nobody else around town is going to get, right? In fact, some of my subs come from out of town because it's worth for them to come from out of a big town into the small town because I have the volume, right? I'm building 6 duplexes at a time. There's not many people around here doing that. And so the subs, they want a piece of that. And I've never had contractors call me more than when I started building. And the more you build, the cheaper you get it, and the better you get it. Like I probably had $10,000 worth of mistakes on my first two duplexes I built, maybe more, just because it was my first time ever. And then as soon as I built them, I was like, okay, next time I build this, I'm going to do this different, this different, this different, and it'll save me this amount of money. So you learn, right? The more you do it, the longer you do it, the cheaper you'll get your cost per square foot to build. So
Absolutely. Yeah, it's such a simple system too, as opposed to rehabs where you never know what you might find under the floorboards or behind the drywall. I also love new construction. Now, circling back, rehabs, you do a lot of value add. You mentioned often being able to more quickly turn around buildings and units that way. Let's talk both sides, both the construction and then the financing of that. Are you using the same bank to pick those up? Are they doing 100% financing? What does that look like?
yeah, and I hate to like, I don't know if this would hurt me saying it, but you can get 100% financing with the bank, but you need a couple things to get that relationship. One, you need that history with them of always doing what you say you're going to do. I think number two is you need a lot of liquidity with them, right? You're probably not going to get 100% financing on $1 million project if you have no checking accounts with that person and no money with that person. And so, like, I've got a bank right now that's doing 100% financing on value adds, but projects are also coming in well above my cost. So I'm buying very good deals. I have a lot of liquid cash with them. There's a lot of equity there, and I have great history with them. So they're willing to do 100% financing. If I was trying to get that with a new bank that I've never worked with, probably not going to happen. Um, and to kind of give you like a case study here, we bought what was a 21 unit, which is probably now a 19 unit, an hour east of here for 270 grand, right? So really, really cheap. Really, really cheap. And there's a reason it was really cheap because it's pretty shitty. It's a not a great property. Needs a lot of work. And it's an hour away from here. Did I say that? And so the rehab budget on that, I want to say was like 300 grand, right? So let's call it all in at 575 and it appraised at 1.15, right? So that's the kind of equity spread that I'm bringing to a bank. So it's kind of hard for them to be like, yeah, you need to put 20% down when it's appraising, almost double what I'm all in it at.
Yeah, it'll make sense, and props to you to be. I mean, I can imagine the nightmares, and I've experienced the nightmares of what the value add projects that end up costing more than the actual property you're buying is. But a question we always ask ourselves at some point is, does it make sense to bring certain trades in house? Bringing your general contractor, bringing what amount to be the subs in house. Do you think that's on the horizon for you? And if so, what positions?
In-house versus subbed out. This is something that I try to do the math on as frequently as I can. There's a lot of hidden costs with both sides. So, like the hidden cost with in-house employees is the management, right? On paper, they may be cheaper, but then we do a bad job of valuing our time of managing that person and all the extra little nuances that come with having an employee. You guys know what I'm talking about. The hidden cost with a subcontractor is they're a subcontractor. You don't really control them, okay? And so they say they're going to be there one day, then they're not there. Then you're chasing them down. You're always negotiating scopes of work. Like there's always kind of this, they're trying to make money, you're trying to make money. An employee is just works for you. He doesn't care if it takes 5 hours or 3 hours, right? There's these little hidden costs there that are hard to put a number to. But I'll give you a real life example. Like on these houses I'm building right now, I'm budgeting it takes about 2 guys to prep, prime, paint out a house, right? It's taking about 3 days to paint out the doors, the trim, walls, ceilings, and the primer and the prep. That's about $1,200 worth of labor if you value each guy at $25 an hour. So that's $50 an hour times 8. I gotta remember the math. I think it was like $1,200 of labor, something like that. And then maybe it was 1,400. And then by the time you value it, the paint and all the material, I'm all in about $2,000, $2,100, $2,200 of labor and material to paint out these houses, right? That doesn't include if I value myself for managing those guys and putting them there and the softwares. That doesn't do a very good job of that. And then I got a price from a subcontractor. He was going to be $3.75, $3.75 a foot to paint out these units. That includes material. So that would come out to about $3,500. right? So I have to compare, is $3,500 from a sub better or is $2,100 in-house better? It depends, right? So what I did is I asked the sub if you could come down to $3 a foot or $3.15 a foot. Here's my volume. Here's the simplicity of the project. I probably would hire you to do that. If you're $2,500, that extra $300 is worth it for me to not have to manage it and oversee it and know it'll be done correctly. You know what I mean?
No, it makes a lot of sense. Um, and it's something we struggle with too, like with surveyors, with road builders. When does it make sense to pay someone 100 or 150 grand a year versus doing all these jobs? And so whenever you're doing these projects, are they, you know, uh, just a fee build of like, exactly how much, or are you doing kind of time and materials for everything? And does it change for new construction versus, rehabs?
Are you asking how I bid them out? Like how I
Yeah.
kinda add it? Okay. It's hard for me to answer that. I just kinda have a feel for it. I think I've always said, like, if I sub out paint, it used to cost $3 a foot. It's probably $3.75 now, like that guy charges. And so I always know my in-house labor is gonna be a tick cheaper than that. Like, on these little houses, roofing, I can get roofs done a lot cheaper than what it would cost me to sub that out, believe it or not. Because they're really quick shingle roofs, right? These guys can slap them on. Siding is a really tough trade to find around here, so my guys do siding in-house, and I save money doing that. There's a few trades I don't wanna touch from a liability perspective and from a licensing perspective, but plumbing and electric, I leave that to the subs. I've shopped that out to get the best prices I can, but, like, depending on the trade, it's either, time and material or it's fixed bid. You start to get a feel for it. So, like, plumbing is usually priced by the opening. That's how a lot of plumbers do it. Electricians will price by different things. Some of them do a price per square foot. Some of them do like a price per light fixture, the complexity of the job. Um, Sheetrock's usually done by the square foot. So they'll add up how many boards are in the job and they'll, calculate your square footage. Flooring is calculated by the square footage. Concrete is calculated by the square footage. It's changed a little bit. So if you do it's so hard to teach somebody about how to estimate construction. My biggest recommendation is just to go do it. Like, you do one project, you start to remember some numbers, and you do your second one, and then you just get better and better. It's really hard to teach people how to do that though, because each market's very different, honestly, on pricing.
Yeah, that's very true. Especially, I'm thinking about you down in Arkansas. You're right by Oklahoma, and I have a friend and investment the guy I invest with down there. And a lot of the counties they do business in, there's no zoning and no
Yeah,
permits to build.
I
Uh,
wish, bro. I
yeah.
wish.
So where you're building, how long does it take to get a permit on an infill, like a ready to go entitled lot?
Oh, I mean, same day. I mean, you can submit plans as long as it's zoned correctly and it meets the requirements. You'll get a permit that day. It's not that difficult, honestly. Like, I have to deal with a little bit of red tape, but it's nothing compared to what some of these other states in the country to have to deal with. Some of these other counties.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Mason and I both do a lot of our business in Colorado, and it's when it comes to restrictions, it's similar to California. So when
yeah,
I hear you're
it's
getting this
crazy.
permit day of, that's amazing.
Yeah,
We're hoping to get one in 4 weeks for a pole barn, like
yeah.
a agricultural pole barn in the middle of nowhere.
It makes me wonder, like, why does it need 4 weeks to get a permit? If it meets their requirements, why can't they just pass it and let it go?
I wish I knew the answer to that, but
Okay.
all that it does is make the price higher, make everything more expensive, and oh well. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
make this my soapbox, but okay. So you've got the new construction, you have the rehab. A lot of this is coming from direct to seller, and of course, there's the management of the units. Are you just flipping as well to make larger chunks of cash? Are you selling a portion of these rehabs?
I used to flip. Last year was my last flip I had done. So it's been at least 8, 9, 10, 11 months since I've flipped a house. I'm not really flipping anymore. Couple of reasons why. Number one is I'm finding I make a lot more money, even though I can't eat it. I'm making a lot more money via equity, focusing on rentals and new construction. Number two is the market kind of stagnated out, so it's really hard to flip right now. It's really hard to tell where the ARV is on the back end. It's like some houses sell, some houses don't, and I can't really tell you why. That's at least my experience in the market. I've seen other people being experiencing the same thing over the last 6 months. Flipping has been tough. If you've been a flipper in the last year and a half, you know what I'm talking about. Like, the market's slowed down a little bit. Um, and I found, like, the last 3 flips I did, I either made or lost $3,000, and I had so much time wrapped up in each flip, and I got done with them, and I was like, what am I doing? Like, I'm making 6 figures over here in equity on this value add I just did, and then I'm jacking around with this flip that I made 2 grand on, like,
Yeah.
and I've had plenty of flips where I make 30 grand, 40 grand, 50 grand, but it's like every time I flipped a house and I made money, it seemed like that money always had a place to go. Like, I never really made that money. It had another bill to pay off. It got me out of a tight spot with a rental, yada yada. So, all that to say, not flipping anymore. I've been able to sustain myself money-wise from like, I'm paying myself a GC fee on these new builds. On these heavy value adds, I'm paying myself a GC fee. So I've gotten really creative with banks on making sure I can pay myself. And I don't lie to them about it. I tell them I want to pay myself just like you would be okay paying a GC. I want to pay myself to be a GC. I need to do a better job at that. But if you're doing enough heavy value add, you can work yourself in their GC fees to live on. So now it's like if I make $5,000 for every house I build and I want to make 60 grand a year, I just need to go build 12 houses a year. Okay, that's easy math. I can do that. Doesn't bother me. And
Sure.
and that money's coming from, you know, loan, right? So it's not taxable like a flip profit is.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. Interesting. I just, it's an endless battle in real estate, properly budgeting for everything that goes wrong, maintaining your liquidity, balancing growth with, just self-preservation when markets shift, when you need a new sewer line and a bunch of tenants move out and just all the things that go wrong go wrong. And so that's pretty cool that you've gotten it to the point where you're not having to flip anything and you're able to just keep everything that you're rehabbing.
yeah. I hated flipping, dude. I'm HGTV pretty is not me. Like, I am basic to the bone, baby. So I'm not a slumlord, but like my rental finishes are very, very simple. I keep it as simple as possible. I'm not this luxurious A-class rental. I keep them super simple. Every unit's got the same color, same flooring, same blind style, same trim profile, same door style. Like, same hardware, same bathroom fixtures, same everything. I just keep it so simple. Um, and so flips, you can get away with that in 2022. In 2026, you ain't getting away with that. It needs design. It needs pretty backsplashes and pretty tile and pretty floors and pretty colors on the walls and just not my expertise.
Yeah, most people just want somewhere that's clean, quiet, and safe, and that they can afford. And I think
Yep.
that's the biggest driving it. Interesting. Okay. Well, we've hit on the new builds, the rehabs. What are there other aspects of your business that we haven't talked about?
I don't know of anything else, man. Acquisition, man. I'm just at some point I'm gonna start buying again. We're gonna keep scaling up. We're aiming for 1,000 units, so I think we'll hit it. It may not happen as fast as I originally thought, but that's okay. That's still a big achievement at the end of the day.
So you're in Mountain Home, Arkansas, and that's where a majority of your portfolio is, right?
Correct.
I imagine it reaches a certain point where there's no more market absorption to hit that. Are you going to go and look at similar, smaller town markets to recreate what you've already built there, or even expand into bigger markets? What's the next step to achieve that growth?
Yeah, that's one of the biggest double-edged swords, I think, is like the pro of that is there's not a ton of competition. I can get properties cheap. I'm not competing with like hedge funds and like, a big city. So I like that part of it. The negative is it takes a lot more units for me to have $10 million of real estate in Mountain Home than it would in Dallas. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? Your average Dallas unit's probably $200,000 plus. Your average apartment unit here is 90,000, 80,000. So I take that into factor. But to answer your question, like I've already started doing that. So that 19 unit is an hour away in Highland. That's a totally different market. Not that great of a market. I'd like to get probably 75, 100 units there, and then I'm capped off on that market. But at least it's another little tree branch, if you will. I think Mountain Home can probably hold, well, I want to hold at max probably 300 units in this area, and then I need to not own anymore. It would just be too much liability.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I get it. My wife's from Southern Mississippi, and I think about how much longer it would take to build wealth there.
Yeah.
There's a simplicity to the format and everything like that. So do you think you would stay in Arkansas or kind of
Yeah.
expand to other states?
Yeah, I think people think Yes, I would just stay local. I mean, I live here. I enjoy living here. It's where I'm from. But people way overthink where they own real estate. And I hope I'm not wrong by saying this because I'm not a CPA. But as far as a tax benefit goes, purely taxes, $10 million of real estate, let's call it 100 million. $100 million of real estate in Mountain Home, Arkansas has the same tax effect as $100 million of real estate in Dallas. You know what I'm saying? Both get depreciated, the same timeline. Both, they both will give you the same benefit on your tax return. One will appreciate higher than the other. That's the biggest con, if you will. And then you can talk about debt the same way. $100 million of debt on real estate in Mountain Home, Arkansas will be the same thing as $100 million of debt on real estate in Dallas. They both have the same AM schedule. They both have the same principal pay down. Obviously, long term, Dallas will outperform where I live. The point is, though, people overthink where they own this real estate, and I used to do it too. It doesn't matter as much. Like, if you die with $100 million of real estate in the most podunk market in the middle of nowhere in USA, like, you did okay. You did good. It doesn't matter that it wasn't in a sexy part of the world. It doesn't matter. Like, you did great. So, yeah.
Oh yeah. No, absolutely. So say you hit that $100 million goal. What's the plan then? Sell it? Just manage it
I don't know,
forever?
man. I genuinely have not thought that far. I really haven't. I would assume at some point, like, I've got a money goal in hand, so I want to get to $30,000 a month of pure cash flow. And I would assume at some point after that number, I'm just going to want simplicity. So if a property gets in the way of a simplistic life where I have to come into the office or I have to put out this fire or whatever, then I'm going to either sell it all to achieve that, or I'll sell a portion of it to achieve that. Or if I've got the right team, I'll keep it all. Like, if I've got $100 million of real estate and I've got to work 4 hours a month, why would I sell it? If everything's working and I'm not complaining about it, like, what would be the point of selling it? Right. I would assume at that point it's cash flowing. It's going up in value. So
Well, Dylan, there's something you've mentioned a few times that we haven't talked about that I think will move us towards the end of the show, but is important, which is mentors. You mentioned your mentors a few times. Tell us a little bit about how you met them, how they've helped you, and yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
yeah. Yeah, great question. I have had multiple mentors, as I'm sure y'all have too. Some teach you a little bit, some teach you a lot of it, but I think each mentor, each partnership, each thing is just one part of the journey, right? Like, you're meant to go through all of them. You're meant to learn those lessons. And so my first officially paid mentor was Henry Washington. I joined his group as a student, and then I helped him coach his group for several years. And I say was with him. Like, I'm still with him in the group. I'm just not really that active in the group anymore. But, I joined him in 2021. And then in 23, I joined a group called Capitalist Cartel. Um, and that was a very intermediate level group. Some people had 30, 40 units, some people had none. That was a good kind of step up. And then I joined Capitalist Cartel Platinum. I know it's kind of silly, but that was like the spotlight of investors. Like, everybody in that group has got a minimum of 50, 60, 70 units. In fact, the top 5 people in that group, like the main guy of the group, the guy who owns the group, he's at 1,400 units. That's the guy, that's my mentor. The next guy is probably at 900 units. The next guy is probably at 700 units. So you just got some really big fish in there. And that group has been instrumental for me because the way they talk about debt and banking relationships and acquisitions, like, if you've ever been in a group where you're like, okay, I am way out of my league here, you'll know what I'm talking about. But man, talk about helping yourself like move up to the next level. Like, you can't help but improve and become better when you're around people that are 10 levels ahead of you. You know what I mean? So that group's been super instrumental. And then along the whole journey, I've had partnerships that, I would consider them mentors as much because, they've taught me one thing or another at some point. So,
Yep. Man, I just want to emphasize what you said about those guys that are miles ahead. The way they talk about debt and relationships with banks. I have learned that same lesson similarly with, a mentor that is well ahead of me, and just seeing what they're able to do and almost play not a different game, but the rules of the game are different for them because of the debt that they're getting, the terms, the rates. It's incredible, and it's been kind of
yeah.
a paradigm shift for me, so I can very much relate to what you're saying.
If you're talking to somebody that's getting, like, in this market, if they're getting 5.5% debt, they're probably a big fish, right? They're doing something where the banks are like, "Yeah, we want to loan you money. We want to loan you money. Please take our money." And that's amazing. Like those guys are not talking to the same guys we're talking to. They're talking to like regional presidents. They're talking to the whole board of the bank, right? Just I don't know what it totally looks like because I'm not there yet. But the other part of it is this journey is so difficult. At least it is in my opinion. So I don't want to sugarcoat it. Like it's hard. I'm having a tough day, tough week. I could not push through these weeks if I didn't have those mentors because they've been to the same spot I have. And so, yeah, I probably would have quit already if I didn't have people ahead of me that were saying, "Hey, it's worth it," or "Hey, you need to hire this person," or "Hey, this is just part of it," or "Hey, it's not as bad as you think it is. Just calm down." You need that. You need that. You have to have people above you helping you out. This game is not done alone. I will call BS on anybody who says otherwise.
Yep. Yep. And you meant them, just to be clear, you paid for
Yeah.
access essentially to them initially.
I did pay, yeah, the partnerships I didn't pay for, I met them from, networking, real estate meetups, actually, several of my partnerships. So, network, 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 okay? Never hurts. Meet as many people as you can, help as many people as you can, and then don't be afraid to pay for mentorship. So, like, when I joined Henry's group, it was $500 a month, and when I joined it, I told him, I was like, "Man, I'm kinda scared I'm not gonna get my money back out of this, like, I hope it's a good investment." And I think month 3, I got a wholesale that made me 3 grand. I was like, "Okay, I'm about, $1,500 into this thing, and I just made 3 grand." And then a couple months after that, I made 35 grand on a flip, right? Those 6 months wouldn't have happened if I didn't take a chance and pay for some mentorship. $500 a month, albeit, like, really not that much. And then even this group with a super big fish, they charge substantially more now, I think, but, you know, I'm at like $1,000 a month, when I joined it. And the amount of access I'm getting for that, oh my gosh, you're telling me $12,000 a year is gonna make me 6, 7 figures of equity growth every year? Would I make that trade? Absolutely.
Yeah, man. I just relate to what you're saying so much because I'm going through a similar experience right now where just it's paradigm shifting when you spend enough time with these people and the numbers you think in and just how you look at it. But all right, well, Dylan, I don't want to keep you too long here. This has been a fun interview. I know you've got some fires to put out,
Dude,
but
I'm not busy. What are you talking about? Let's stay on this thing. I ain't got no it's good.
there are a couple questions we like to ask every guest at the end. The first of which is, are there any questions we didn't ask you that you think we should have?
Maybe you can ask, is it worth it? And so,
Yeah.
um, some days I wanna ask my mentor that, and some days I do. Is it worth it? I think you have to love it. So I hate what I do some days, but I do love what I do. I enjoy work. I enjoy the challenge. It's something new every day. I think you need to love it. Is it worth it? Like I have to look and say, you know what? I'm 28 years old. I live on a 23-acre little farm. I've got a house. I've got a sweet place to live for my age. Like, I get to vacation about as much as I want. I get this and that. I've got a cool truck. So like even though it feels like it's not worth it sometimes, it is worth it, there's days I have to work that I don't want to, but I know 10 years from now, I will never regret the time I'm spending right now because time will solve all issues. And, yeah, man, maybe not worth it today, but it's gonna be worth it in the future. So keep your
Yeah,
head
you
up.
have to. You suffer for a few years so you can do whatever you want for a lot of years, and I think a lot of people do it the other way around and regret it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I think so.
awesome. Well, Dylan, where can people find out more about you or get in touch with you if they want to?
So Facebook is my platform because that's where the old people hang out, and I like Facebook. The old people own real estate, guys. Now, Facebook, Dylan.Osmond, Dylan.Osmond. Instagram is Dylan_Osmond. I started a podcast myself, believe it or not. And March of this year was the last time I did an episode. And why I haven't done one since, I don't know. I just haven't had my eye on the ball. You guys know it's hard to do a podcast. You got to take time out of your day. But I did about 20 episodes on there. I think they're pretty solid. They've got some good people on there. Someday I'll pick it up and keep making episodes. So I do have a podcast.
What's it called?
Oh, so yeah, the Do Real Estate Podcast. The DO Real Estate Podcast stands for the initials. Get it?
The Do Real Estate Podcast. All right, we'll have to link to that in the show notes. But awesome. Well, Dylan, thanks for coming on. It was fun talking, and it'll be fun to see where you're at in another 2, 3, 4 years.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me.
Yep. Until next time, guys. Mason, Dan, and Dylan for the Big Picture Blueprint signing off.